Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Brooke Gracie, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Cvent. I'm also a huge AI enthusiast, so I am thrilled to be moderating this wonderful conversation about AI. We have such a great panel for you today, including Conrad Mills, who is the Principal Analyst at Forrester. We also have Lashkar Kashif, who is our Senior Director of Machine Learning and Data Science right here at Cvent, and Valdir Faria, who is the event technologist of conferences and events at the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. These guys will be giving their perspective on a variety of aspects involving AI. And towards the end of our panel, we are going to open up the floor to you to take your questions. So please submit any questions that you'd like our panelists to answer during the Q&A. You can do that right in the Q&A tab on the right-hand side. And of course, we also have our chat open. I love the chat when we're having conversations like this. So please get yourself involved right there on the right-hand side as well and keep that conversation going. And on a personal note, I do have two little very cute puppies running around who have not learned their inside voices. So if they make an unscheduled appearance today, I apologize. So let's just go ahead and get to our panel. I want to start off with a peek into the future of AI. And I'm really curious how you all see AI changing the landscape of this events industry in the next few years, sorry. Conrad, I'm going to kick it over to you first. I'd love to hear from you on this one.
Sure. I mean, if the last 4 years has taught us anything, it's that it's impossible to predict the future of the event industry. But I think we can probably all agree that AI is going to transform business-to-business marketing, is transforming business-to-business marketing, and events is going to be no exception to that. And actually, marketers agree with this. We ran a Forrester survey towards the end of the last year, and in that survey, 57% of respondents told us they believed that AI was going to fundamentally transform event planning and execution within the next 24 months. I do think that it's worth making the point that when we talk about AI, at the moment, we're generally focusing on generative AI. And there are actually lots of different types of AI out there. There's automation AI, there's predictive AI, there's prescriptive AI, but it's generative AI which is getting lots of the attention at the moment. If we think kind of short term, what will the transformation be? I think we're going to see organizations start to take a more structured approach. So using more private language models to run AI in more secure environments that meet their organizational security requirements. We're going to see this continued focus on maximizing the value of event data to deliver more personalized experiences to attendees and also to create new event content assets. At the team level, there probably will be an impact on skills and roles over the coming months and years. And again, going back to the Forrester survey from last year, around a third of respondents actually believe that some roles or tasks in the event space will disappear over the next 24 months. Short term, I don't think that's the case. Many people have said this already, but it won't be AI taking event marketer jobs. It will be event marketers using AI. So it's really important that we kind of continue to upskill and build our capabilities at a personal level around AI. And just the final point I'd make is that clearly from a technology perspective, AI is going to be central to tech moving forward. And interestingly, again, going back to that survey, 67% of marketers told us that when it comes to evaluating their event tech partners moving forward, they're going to be looking specifically at their AI capabilities and roadmap as part of that evaluation.
That is amazing. I bet Lashkar is very excited to hear that as well, since we here at Cvent are thinking about AI all of the time. And I love what you said, Conrad, about when we're talking about AI right now, it is very generalized, right? Like there are a lot of different facets of AI, and we're really kind of focusing on one part. Lashkar, I am really curious to get your view on the landscape of the event industry and what you think it's going to look like in the next few years.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. So at a high level, I think AI tools are going to be developed that have comprehensive knowledge of both specific events and all the key personas related to the event ecosystem. What do I mean by that? Think of an AI which knows about event planners and marketers. So the marketer persona that we were talking about. For them, we can design, and we are going to design chat-driven workflows instead of long forms. So instead of filling out a form with 100 fields and drop-down menus and all that, you are basically having a chat, a conversation with a bot, and it's filling out the event creation, event management, whatever workflow for you. Right? Think about proactive recommendations on event setup. Knowing all about the event that you're setting up, what should you actually do? How should you set it up? And that's important for both the pre-event and the during event phases. Think of AI-driven event insights automatically generated both pre, during, and post-event. That's all for the planner, marketer persona. And then we come to the event attendees, invitees. So there, think of recommendations of event components, event resources, right? What sessions to attend, what PDFs you should read, what exhibitor booths you should visit, what attendees you should network with. Personalized event journey recommendations, basically. Something like an AI concierge in an event, which knows all about the event and about you, the attendee. So you can ask it anything about that event, and it will curate the response just for you. AI assisted engagement post event or between events in your account. That's all on the attendee side. Then for the hotelier persona, similarly, we are envisioning something like an AI-assisted RFP response process. So again, those of you who are from the hotel side know how cumbersome it can be to fill out an RFP proposal. So we are looking to, AI will be streamlining that process significantly. And it goes on for exhibitors, for sponsors, basically all key personas to the event and meetings ecosystem.
Wow, that sounds like a dream, Lashkar. You really, really painted an amazing picture there. It really sounds like AI has a really bright future when it comes to the event industry. But I can't help but think about, what about right now? What do you think are some of those big event challenges that marketers and planners are facing that they could get help with from AI right now? And Conrad, I know you came prepared with some really awesome data to show us. So I'm going to kick this over to you first.
Yeah, thanks. We asked this question in that survey last year, and what we did was we identified 8 potential AI use cases for events and looked at the challenge that use case was solving. And then we wanted to understand to what extent these challenges were real. Marketers were experiencing these challenges right now. And that's what you can see on the slide here. It's the data from that question. And what came out is that these are real challenges that marketers are experiencing. And there were 3 in particular that surfaced. Number 1, underutilized event content. So a recognition by 63% of respondents that, yes, that is a challenge for them. They recognize that they're investing time and resource in creating some fantastic content that then they do too little with post-event. Second biggest challenge where we see an AI use case is around event data. 55% of respondents in the survey recognized that they were not maximizing the value of the event data. We think about the potential value of that data. It's probably one of the single best sources of zero and first party audience data available to organizations. So we think about a typical event, you're able to capture anywhere from between 10 and maybe up to 40, 50 different demographic, firmographic, and behavioral data points on attendees. But at the moment, that data sits in silos, sits outside standard data best practices. So recognition that's a challenge. And then the third challenge that I'd highlight was just a recognition that at the moment we're not able to deliver the level of highly personalized experience that attendees are expecting and will start to demand at the events that they attend. And particularly we think about some of the next generation attendees coming along, those millennials and Gen Zs. They're going to expect a deeper level of personalization. There's recognition that at the moment, we're not able to do that.
Absolutely. And I love hearing the data piece come up over and over again. We have a vast amount of data at our fingertips when we host events or even attend events. And so it's great to hear that AI may be able to help us sort through that, find the key insights. And Valdir, I really want to hear from you on this as well. What those challenges that planners and marketers face and how AI can be a big help with that. Please give us your insights.
Yeah, so I want to answer this from the nonprofit perspective, because I feel that they face kind of a triple constraint there. And the first one is always financial, right? There's a tight budget usually, and AI can help by analyzing cost-effective venues, suggesting alternative fundraising strategies, or even optimizing marketing budgets to reach a wider audience without overspending. The second piece is usually limited staff, right? Many of them have a small team or rely heavily on volunteers, making it challenging to manage all aspects of the event planning. AI can assist by automating routine tasks, and scheduling, emailing communications, like the standard communications, data entry, freeing up staff to focus more on strategic or creative aspects of event planning. And then finally, the last thing is the limited time for planning and executing the events, mainly because they have limited staff or financial constraints, but AI can definitely help them in project managing, right? Creating tools, helping creating timelines, setting reminders for key tasks and tracking progress, and just overall ensuring that the deadlines are met without the need of a lot of manual oversight.
Amazing. So AI is going to save us both time and money. I'm here for it. Let's talk about it a little bit more now. Now, I am a marketer. I come from a marketing team. So I'm very curious what you guys think AI can do to help us as marketers, but across that entire event life cycle. And Conrad, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, the first point I'd make is that AI can help across the entire event life cycle. The graphic you can see here is from a report that Forrester report that we've just published. And we wanted to identify kind of the key use cases for AI across all three stages of the event life cycle. So what are the three key use cases: pre-event, at event, and post-event? And what we kind of started to realize was that actually the core benefit of AI is different at each phase of the event life cycle. At the pre-event stage, really it's about driving efficiency and productivity improvements through things like simplifying event management, whether that's helping with sourcing venues, budget management, developing resource plans. At event, it's more about delivering the highly personalized experiences that I was talking about earlier, but also making those experiences more inclusive and accessible. And potentially some of the use cases that Lascar was talking about from a bot perspective, how they can support here as well. And then post-event, the focus should be very much on using AI to maximize event ROI through an improved analysis of that data that you're capturing and making better value of the content that you've created for your events.
I'm so glad you mentioned personalization, because that is absolutely top of mind for us here at Cvent and for my team. And it really brings us to our next point, which is how can AI be used to help event planners really better understand their attendees and help to personalize that experience? Because we know that's what everyone is craving, right? They want that personalized experience. So Lashkar, I think you have some insights for us here. I'm anxious to hear.
Yeah, definitely. So Cvent has been trying to do this, for example, with more traditional AI, but now with generative AI in our toolset, it's a whole different level. So think of AI being used to surface an attendee's firmographics data, right? Attendees' professional interests based on both information they provide when they register for an event, as well as their actions, behavior, during the event they're attending, right? Those professional interests are crucial for the planner marketer to know in their own right. But also, once we know what those interests are, we can progressively curate the attendee's event journey using those, right? Then think about AI assisting in creating intelligent segments, attendee segments in the event, right? Because attendees in different segments can have different curated experiences during the event and messaging both before and after an event, right? So really, the attendee experience is going to become much more fluid, much more value extracting, right? Much more valuable. They're going to be able to use their time much more effectively in an event with AI driven recommendations and understanding of the attendee.
Yes, of course. Conrad, I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well regarding personalization.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, I'd go back to the point I made earlier that events are a fantastic source of audience data. As Lashkar mentioned, there's a tremendous quantity of demographic, firmographic, behavioral data that we're capturing, and it's data that's the engine that drives personalization. And by analyzing that data, we can start to deliver much more personalized experiences. And it's everything from kind of the landing page that a prospective attendee experiences at the start of an event through to the agendas, the interfaces on the applications they're using, the content recommendations, session recommendations, exhibitor recommendations they're receiving, matchmaking with other attendees to drive enhanced networking. The other point I'd make with personalization is it's not just about the at-event experience. Personalization should be starting pre-event from the first moment that you start to engage with the event, and should absolutely be continuing post-event as well. And I think ultimately we're going to end up in a position in the near future where every attendee experiences an event in a particularly unique way to them.
That's absolutely amazing. The dream, right? And we have all of this data again at our fingertips. I'm sorry, I'm just blown away. This is such an interesting conversation. And I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit here, because with data and with AI, I'm curious how we can be using this technology to also help measure our success. We're always talking about the ROI. We spend a lot of money and time to put on events and attend events. So how can AI help us to then see the ROI of that? And Valdir, I think I want to start with you, because we can hear this kind of from that user perspective.
Definitely. So the success of the event, I think, really starts from the pre-event stage, right? It's when you're setting everything up, you're aligning your event with your strategic objectives from both the organization perspective and also the actual event. So AI can analyze past event data to predict attendance numbers, identify potential sponsors, or even suggest pricing strategies based on the market trends and what other conferences of similar nature of yours is going on at the same time, right? And then during the event, the AI can track various metrics in real time, such as website visits, session signups, social media engagement, and all these things are markers of success throughout the life cycle of the event itself. And the data collected can provide insights into attendees' behavior and event performances, which I think is crucial during the event, right? Because you can adjust and pivot as needed and as you're analyzing all this data, right? And then finally, you can get the post-event surveys, social media mentions, and other feedback channels, and the AI can provide a comprehensive analysis or view of the attendee satisfaction, overall event impact, right? So you're really kind of getting the satisfaction rating from 3 different stages or the entire life cycle of the event itself. And of course, there is the monetary return of investment that we want to make sure that we're also in the black for that.
Of course. Yeah. And I hear you guys again and again talking about the data, right? And really AI being this tool to analyze and sort through data in a way that us as humans probably never would. And if we did, it would take us a very, very long time. Conrad, I'm really curious to hear your take on this as well.
Yeah, so actually just building off the point that you made, what generative AI enables us to do is ingest and analyze large volumes of data. But it's that combined with natural language processing that enables us to get quick answers to complex questions. Now, there's one marketer I was talking to just a few weeks back who was pretty data savvy and used to have to develop and run some pretty complex pivot tables to analyze kind of event performance. And he told me he's just using ChatGPT-4 now and inputting data into that to get answers to some pretty complex questions around comparative event performance, benchmarking events against each other. So I think what it's done is enable us to become more self-sufficient, and it's kind of democratized the whole area of analysis and insight generation. Now, some of the things the areas that we're able to look at and analyze now were previously just available to larger enterprises with deep expertise in data analysis. The other point that I'd make actually just on success measurement is we probably want to be looking slightly more broadly at this question and thinking about how generative AI can help us analyze other areas of our event. So for an example, sustainability. And we start capturing and inputting maybe energy data, waste data, that can then start thinking about ways in which we can drive sustainability improvements at our events as well.
That's amazing. Yes, the dreaded pivot table, right? I love to hear that there's going to be a solution for that. It's so interesting. The next thing that comes to mind for me, though, is we hear, okay, AI, amazing. We should all be using it. But that adoption piece, actually getting our teams and our leaders to adopt this technology so that we can measure the success. So talking about the adoption of AI, what do you guys see as some of the biggest challenges that marketers and planners are facing in adopting AI technology? And Valdir, I think you have some experience with this, so I think I'm going to kick it over to you first.
Sure. So in my organization and also with other colleagues outside and on the internet, the common challenge that everyone's facing or people have is this question over the legitimacy and authenticity of using AI in your events or just using AI in general with your workload and your workflows. Many of them are unsure how to implement the AI systems in a way that aligns with the values of their organization. There's also a lack of understanding about how AI works and its potential benefits, even if they believe that there are any benefits, right? And it leads to a certain confusion about the role of AI in everyone's everyday process. Consequently, there may be a resistance to change due to the potential impact AI can have on those traditional processes that everyone enjoys or just got used to doing every day, right? So these challenges I view these challenges essentially rooted in the ethical value of using AI or what is perceived as ethical, and also the lack of understanding of what our current AI is and how it's used.
Yeah, absolutely. Change is hard, right? And we're getting a lot of information thrown at us about AI, both positive and negative. So it's kind of hard to sort through all of that. Conrad, I think you brought some data with you that's going to help us answer this question as well about adoption, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, sure. And again, this is data from the AI and Events survey that we ran last year. And we asked one particular question around the challenges that marketers foresaw when it came to adopting AI inside their organizations from an event perspective. And you can see on the right-hand side of the slide here, the top four challenges. And number one is around access to the high volume of high quality data that we need for AI to be able to deliver the level of personalization that we've been talking about. And 65% of marketers recognize this as a challenge. And the risk is if we don't have access to this high quality data and we input outdated, poor quality data into our AI platforms, best it's going to be ineffective. But at worst, it's going to deliver a terrible audience experience. So that was number one. Equal second, we had managing delegate privacy. This was a challenge recognized by 60% of marketers. And as I just said, AI requires large volumes of personal data. And this is kind of at odds with some of the regulatory moves that we're seeing to limit this. And clearly, a balance needs to be struck here. We need to clearly comply with legislation, but also be transparent with delegates around how we're using their data. Equal second, we had risk to brand. So again, 60% recognizing this as a challenge when it came to deploying AI. And clearly, generative AI can quickly and cost effectively produce event content for us. But the risk is that the content that it's producing is poor quality, potentially very generic, undifferentiated. So our events don't stand out from our competitors' events, and there's an impact on our brand. And there's also kind of an ethical side to this as well, where maybe some of the event content we're creating through generative AI has an intended bias in it. And then the final challenge which came out was the challenge around protecting organizational IP. Just a recognition that there's a risk when we're inputting proprietary data or content into particularly open AI platforms. And clearly lots of organizations have put restrictions in place around this at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time I do one of these webinars about AI, the questions I get are about the privacy and about the data and sort of the ethics around, do we just plug it in and have it write a session for us? And how ethical is that? So it's very interesting to talk about. So I guess, Conrad, my question back to you is, though, what do we need to consider when we are trying to adopt these AI technologies and adopting them effectively?
Yeah, sure. And this was something I wrote about in a recent report. And we identified kind of 4 elements that organizations need to focus on to drive effective adoption. And it's kind of people, process, and technology, like it always is. And from a people perspective, there's kind of 2 areas to think about. The first is upskilling. Clearly, we need to keep humans central to event planning and execution. We need to start to build AI skills within our teams. I saw some data earlier this week, and it suggested that less than half of marketers had a limited or no understanding of AI. It also suggested only around 28% were investing in AI training at the moment, and less than a quarter had any intention to upskill. So that's concerning. The other side to the people equation is just the importance of building strong internal partnerships to drive effective adoption. Marketers should not be deploying AI in a silo. We need to be partnering with operations teams to ensure that AI platforms have access to the data that they need, and that data is compliant, and that AI platforms also interconnect with our existing ecosystem. And we should also be partnering with privacy and risk experts internally as well, to ensure that what we're deploying is ethical and follows the privacy principles that we need to. From a process perspective, it's about risk mitigation through good governance. Clearly, we need to comply with regulatory compliance, but we also need to build trust with our attendees and audiences by being transparent about how we're using AI. From a tech perspective, it's all about focusing on solutions which have enterprise-grade security. Now, again, we need to be partnering with ops teams to evaluate prospective partners, ensuring that they meet our organizational security requirements. And also looking at it from a data perspective, are these solutions using data masking to protect private information? Do they deploy toxicity detection, auditing logs? These are the sorts of questions that we need to be asking, but it's only by partnering with ops teams that we're able to ask those questions.
Yes, I find myself nodding a lot during this presentation. This is all making a lot of sense. And here we are again talking about privacy. And Lashkar, I kind of wanted to ask you this, those ethical considerations. What ethical considerations should event planners keep in mind when they're using AI?
Yeah. So in general, AI machine learning do not yield 100% accurate answers, right? That's in the statistical nature of these tools. But with generative AI in particular, ChatGPT and so on, it can hallucinate, right? So we are not talking about one or two pieces of misinformation or wrong output. We are talking about entire, a paragraph of hallucination and so on. So, accuracy is never guaranteed, and that's always to be kept in mind, right? Then, for example, a planner should not go and create an attendee segment that can have potentially unfair biases, right? As Conrad was talking about, keep data privacy laws in mind at all times. On the hallucination side or wrong answer side, we expect that technology to improve and these hallucinations to go down with time. And as we get more and more familiar with prompt engineering, as it's called now, those things will go down. But things like data privacy laws, considerations will never be built into these large language models, right? ChatGPT and so on. So the planner has to be cognizant of these at all times. Not just the planner. On the Cvent side, on the software side, we are being cognizant of that progressively more and more.
Yeah, and I feel like we're going to just learn more and more about this as we go. It's kind of be this ever-evolving conversation we're going to have. Yep. Conrad, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, no, so I'd agree, about the dangers, on potentially the accuracy of some of the content we're creating, unintended bias within that content. And it just emphasizes to me the importance of keeping human marketers absolutely central to event content and content creation distribution at the moment. As we've already said, clearly we need to comply with, privacy laws in this space. But it's important to get the right balance between privacy and personalization. And it's important to be transparent with our audiences around how we're using AI. I saw some data again earlier this week, which I found concerning, and it suggested that over 70% of marketers are currently not revealing how they're using AI to event delegates and stakeholders. And that's, for me, that's a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting when we're talking about this, and especially exposing, like, we are using AI to do XYZ, to write this presentation or so and so on. And I did a webinar recently, and we did the whole thing start to finish just using AI. And what I found is it ended up sounding honestly a bit robotic. It really didn't sound like Brooke, right? And so I came out of that experience really understanding that there has to be a balance. There has to be that human touch. You can't just use AI, copy, paste, and call it a day, right? So Conrad, I'm really curious to hear your opinion on this as well.
Yes, so I think it's important that organizations step back and think about what are the AI use cases that are going to deliver most value to you as an organization. We think back to the graphic from earlier with the kind of the 9 use cases across the 3 event phases. Think where AI is going to deliver most value. Don't just focus on generative AI. And at the same time, look to upskill teams so that they're able to deliver those use cases. When it comes to generative AI, I think the message is we cannot over rely on it for content generation, because the risk is, as you've just said, we end up with bland, undifferentiated, generic event content. So my guidance to clients at the moment is use it primarily for ideation, fine-tuning, so you ensure consistency of style and tone, rather than wholesale content generation. Now, I don't know how many of you on the webinar today saw, but there was a humans versus AI competition at the recent PCMA leaders event, and the human team kind of created less content. I think it was 6 pieces of content versus 60 pieces by the team using AI. But it was the human team that would judge the overall winners, because just the creative quality of the content that they produced was so superior to the AI generated content. So I think the bottom line is, marketers have to remain, human marketers have to remain central to kind of the event planning and execution process.
Absolutely. And that's kind of our superpower as marketers, right? We have this creative brain. We need to be using that. But I have found too that the combination of, me, Brooke's voice, plus using AI is really that sweet spot. It's not one or the other. And I can get a lot more done. Valdir, I see you nodding a lot as well. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure. I think the careful balance between the use of AI and human touch comes at the very intentional integration of AI into our workflows, especially during the event prep phase, right? And this really includes areas where AI can be effectively utilized, such as automating, your standard emails like newsletters and things like that, or analyzing data for the insight, right? But just as you, Brooke, and Conrad, you guys mentioned this, I think it's extremely important that we review and refine all of the outputs for AI, right? Especially when we're using it for communication purposes, and to make sure that the language being used is aligning with your organization's culture and values. I worked previously at a membership organization, and it's a membership organization that's been in California for over 100 years. They have a very distinct way to speak to their members, right? If I was still there today, most likely I would be using AI, but all the communications would be tailored to the way that the members are used to receiving their communications. So I think that's extremely important. It really kind of gives you that human touch to it, right? So while AI can also streamline processes and improve efficiency, it shouldn't replace the human interaction entirely, right? So while we're creating standard emails, there's gotta be space for you to have that human touch for it. And planners should really reserve their personal communication that way for the direct one-to-one interactions, right? And just leave the AI for the more standardized, repeated tasks. So by understanding the role of AI, I think we can set clear boundaries for its use, right? And planners can maintain a human-centric approach to their event planning and their event execution while leveraging all the benefits of the AI technology.
Yeah. I've also found that AI is not very funny. So I would not recommend using it for your stand-up routine or anything like that. But, we as humans, we like to inject a little humor here and there, right? And so again, we got to put that sort of human touch on all of this. So thank you, Valdir, for those insights. Now, I'm going to move on to our very last question that we have planned for today. But as a reminder, we have some time at the end dedicated to answer your questions. So please, 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 if you have any burning questions for any of these panel, please go ahead and put that in the Q&A, and we'll get to those in just a second. Okay, without further ado, the last question. What do you all see in the state of play in terms of AI adoption? And how is this going to change over the coming 12 months, let's say? And I want to get everyone's take on this, but Conrad, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, and we asked this question in the survey last year, and you can see the output on the slide here. At the time when we asked the question, the bottom line was that usage was pretty low across the board. You can see kind of 8 use cases that we had, 8 AI use cases we identified, and the top 3 use cases on the right-hand side, and kind of the uptake there was kind of low to mid-teen, so pretty low. And we also discovered in the survey that 87% of marketers said that they were in learning mode right now when it came to using AI for their events. At the same time, we had a majority of marketers telling us that AI is fundamentally going to transform how they plan and execute events over the next 24 months. And when we look at the planned adoption levels, And you can see the top 3 use cases there towards the bottom of the right-hand side. You can see the levels are much higher. So we look at the number 1 use case, data-driven automated post-event attendee follow-up. We can see 40% of marketers telling us that they plan to use AI for that over the next 12 months. And over a third of marketers telling us they intend to use AI to automate the production of secondary assets. So effectively, AI is going to take off over the next 12 months. And again, I saw some data earlier this week which suggested that over 60% of event professionals are now using AI to some extent. So I think it absolutely is taking off right now.
I love that. One of the things that I love that Cvent did is they just kind of gave all of us access to AI and said, go play, go find some efficiencies, because who's the AI expert really, right? And then having those cross-functional conversations about how we implement it. So it's really good to see the data that, yes, we are planning on using this, and it's going to be probably a big part of our conversation about efficiencies moving forward. Valdir, I'm really curious to hear your perspective on this as well.
I'm really excited for AI, especially for the next 12 months. I'm seeing the growth of it and the expansion and how varied the technology is becoming. It's becoming integrated into our everyday apps. I mean, my organization, we have our big event happening in March. We're using Attendee Hub. I'm already using some of the AI functionality of the Attendee Hub there, and I see it improving it day by day. It's really exciting. And the expanding use of AI, it's going to present a wealth of opportunities for various organizations with limited financial resources to overcome those barriers and elevate their events, promoting their mission and achieving their objectives, right? And how they do that is through, I think it's kind of an open source mentality, right? So they can go through forums like Cvent Community, where their event planners and marketers can share best practices, AI prompts and questions and answers, and facilitating the knowledge sharing and collaboration in that field. And then also, as AI continues to evolve and new versions are introduced into the market, again, the practice of an open source framework will make it a lot easier for organizations to adopt AI, because it's going to become more common, right? People are going to be more comfortable with it. So I think the collective effort in AI's development and the use will benefit the industry as a whole, and it's going to enable more organizations to leverage AI for their events effectively, especially in the nonprofit industry.
Amazing. Love hearing your experience with Attendee Hub. And I think it's interesting you mentioned the community too, because that really is how we're going to learn. Right now we're just learning from each other, best practices in almost real time. So it's great to have that space where you can talk to other like-minded professionals. Lashkar, I certainly, last but certainly not least, I would love to hear your perspective on this. What is it going to look like in the next year or so?
Yeah. So I personally expect AI, and especially generative AI, to transform our software around the events and meetings ecosystem over the next 2 to 3 years. So 12 months, we are going to push out a lot of things, but I don't think it's going to radically look different until a couple more years as we push out more and more of these things. And there are 2 other considerations here. Number one, on the technology side, the models and their implementations are going to improve, right? Progressively, they already are. On the other hand, security, legal, compliance, these aspects will be better understood, and people will just trust it more. So coming back to the points made by Conrad and Valdir, right? More peer-to-peer learning, more trust, and improvements on the hard side, the technology side, and on the soft side, so security, legal compliance, all of that. And it also in that relation, coming back to what Conrad was saying earlier about partnering with other departments in your company, right, to do this correctly rather than jumping head in. So in Cvent, we have an AI steering committee, which is overseeing all of the security, information security, legal compliance aspects, all of this, right? The CIO has overall ownership of that. The chief information officer is there. The global counsel, the legal counsel, legal head is there. All of that. So really, as soon as we are starting to do it systematically, we are finding out best practices on what to do, how to get there. Some of our large enterprise clients who have kind of shied off a bit from this, right? Because they don't want to assume liabilities for anything that may go wrong with AI, are now trusting Cvent or some software vendor on that side because we are doing it in a systematic way. So again, my point is from both the technology and non-technology, non-technical consideration side, things will be improving. And I would say 2 to 3 years is the timeline that I foresee.
Right. This is the long game. And it sounds like the worst thing we could do is work in silos. It's that cross-functional sharing and everything that's really the key. This is so great. Thank you all for your insights. And Conrad, thank you for coming with such amazing Forrester data. I think that really helped with this conversation. We are going to move to live Q&A here in just a second. So if you have any last minute burning questions, make sure you get them in there. But first, I need to mention there is an opportunity for you all to earn a $100 gift card as well. I don't know if you're anything like me and you have that wish list that you could really use this gift card for. If you sign up to complete a demo with us, you can earn this $100 gift card. So I'm going to throw a link in the chat if you want to go ahead and click on that if you're interested in that demo. And now we're going to move to our first question of our live Q&A. And these are a surprise to me as well. So let's see what came up first. All right, is AI already included in the event build process, or is that something that a planner would have to request?
I can take that from the Cvent side. So in our software, as of now, there is no AI included in the event build process. That's going to come in over the next month. But even if it is, the planner would be expected to turn it on. This is why we don't want the AI to create something and push it out in production without the planner being cognizant. So the planner would have to request it, right? And then they would have to use it on an event by event basis. And they are always going to get a chance to review everything that the AI did before pushing anything out. Right?
That's great. And Lashkar, correct me if I'm wrong, but while AI isn't part of the build process right now, there is some AI functionality already built in, for example, writing session descriptions and things like that, where you can use it and it's kind of built in, ready to roll if you're using the Cvent product.
That's right. But nothing is done by default. The planner always has to click on at least a button. And we want
Make sure to turn it on, everyone. Yeah. It's well worth it. Trust me. I played around with it a bit. Very good. Anybody else probably doesn't want to chime on that. So we're going to go to the next question. What skills and knowledge do event planners need to effectively implement AI in their events? $1 million question, right? You need a doctorate in AI, I assume?
So I can have a go at answering that. So for me, it comes down to defining the use cases that you're going to be using. So we go back to the graphic from earlier with the 9 different use cases. Think about which of those is going to deliver best value to you and your organization, and then look to pilot some technology, some solutions in that area, upskill yourself on that particular solution, and just get used to using it. At a super basic level, I think one skill that everybody should start focusing on is how to write good prompts. Now that can make such a difference. Just understanding how to ask questions in the right way, how to ask the right sort of follow-up question to get the solution that you're looking for from a generative AI solution.
Yeah, so glad you mentioned prompts as well. Oh yeah, go ahead, Lashkar, please.
So in regard to that, there are a few courses in the public domain on how to write good prompts, right? And those courses will be evolving as well as the models evolve and the best practices change and so on. But yes, there are learning resources on this in the open domain.
That's amazing. Have you guys ever seen a prompt library work very well either? I feel like, if you have the same group of people who are doing kind of the same tasks and they're learning how to write prompts, kind of sharing that might be helpful as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. Vladimir, did you have something as well?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the idea of don't reinvent the wheel. So we pretty much said what I was thinking, Brooke, is that, seek out resources of what other people have done, right? And kind of to Conrad's point, kind of think about why do you want to use AI? How do you want to use AI? And see if anyone else has used AI in that manner and seek them out, or seek if they publish something or put something on a forum or whatnot, and start from there. And then, yes, you do need to be able to write good prompts, and that's a skill that's easily acquired from the various resources that are available online.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys know, is there any kind of accredited certification somebody could take to become an expert of some sort?
Actually, yes, the MPI just came out with a new AI course, certification course. Not certificate.
Now that's a hot tip. Yeah, gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be a lot more pop up, right? Like this is the thing. We're all learning together. Okay. So when it comes to AI, I feel like it's daunting for people, right? Like, how do I get started in AI? How do I dip my toe, into the AI waters? So is there a way to utilize AI with minimal upfront time commitment and just kind of getting started on learning how to use AI and kind of figuring out what best practice there might be if you don't have a ton of time to take a certification?
So I think there is, and I think you can jump in and just try stuff, and there's value to that. But I do think it's important that we upskill ourselves. I was, I think I said earlier, slightly shocked by the data I saw earlier this week, suggesting that a large percentage of marketers have no intention to upskill themselves when it comes to AI. And the risk, and I think I said this again earlier, and it's been said many times before, it's not AI that's going to be taking marketers' jobs away. It's marketers that know how to use AI that will be taking jobs away. So I think we have to find the time to upskill ourselves.
Yeah. But having said that, I would not envision a lot of technical learning, right? Beyond the prompt engineering, beyond how to do it well. And from a software vendor perspective, in all Cvent software where we implement AI, we will be trying to make it as easy to use as possible, right? With pointers wherever needed. Right?
Yeah. And I also find it interesting that probably a lot of tools that you're already using have AI built in, and you just may or may not know it. When I was just kind of starting to get used to it, I would, go to Canva, one of my favorites, right? And check out their AI capabilities. So it is kind of interesting that you might already have it at your fingertips just to play around with. We have plenty of questions, so I'm gonna take a few more. It might take us a little bit past the hour, but I'm really curious. This one, how can we effectively develop or train a machine learning model to mitigate biases? Ooh, this is a good question. You want to take that?
I can take a stab at this. It's a big topic, but I would say it's bigger on the side of large core machine learning model developers like Google and so on. Now, when you are developing a machine learning model, you are feeding it input data. So the first thing to look for here is potential biases in the data. Okay, there will be, these models, especially large models, are trained on the entire World Wide Web and so on. They will inherit all the biases in it, right? But from the input data, there are ways to weight the data, for example, among various demographics to mitigate those biases. You cannot eliminate it completely, but you can mitigate those efforts. So that's the core. I would say that kind of an exercise is in the domain of data scientists, machine learning engineers, right? AI developers. But once you have developed a model, typically there are ways to look for biases there as well in a highly mathematical space. Okay, and then you can do things like calibration, translation of model parameters, and so on to kind of reduce those biases. So there are ways to do it. But at the end of the day, please keep in mind that these models are made on human-generated input, and therefore they are going to have biases. So it's ultimately up to us, the users of the model, to be cognizant of potential biases at all times. So it does not take that due diligence away.
Yeah. So let me make sure that I understood exactly what you were saying there. Basically, AI is analyzing data super, 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 super fast. So if the data you put in has biases, you're going to get probably that back out as well. So it's really our responsibility to make sure that the data we put in has as few biases
as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, both on the input data side and on the model output side.
Okay. Yeah.
On the
Yeah.
lookout.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. Whoever submitted that, thank you. Okay, so recommended AI platforms. What are recommended AI platforms? They are everywhere, right? Should we use something like ChatGPT, or what is it we should be looking at?
Yeah. Go ahead, Conrad.
No, I was just going to say, this is just the space is evolving so quickly. There are so many solutions out there. I think it's very difficult to come up with a list of recommended platforms. Again, I would go back to kind of what are the use cases you're looking for? Mm-hmm. What are the types of AI that you're thinking about? Are you focused on kind of automation AI? Is it predictive AI, prescriptive AI, generative AI? Because they're all different flavors, and there's a different solution set under each of those. So I think that this is nearly impossible to answer.
The $1 million question. It's almost like working backwards. What's the problem you're trying to solve, or where are you trying to find efficiencies, and then what are the systems that can help you with that?
Yeah, and it's evolving very quickly.
Yeah, in general.
I agree.
Sorry, yeah, Valdir, go ahead.
Oh, I agree with Conrad. I think it really depends on what you're tackling, and I would recommend to use the same platform or something similar that your community is using. So that way it's easier to share knowledge. It's easy to learn from each other. And then from there on, explore other platforms. I personally use ChatGPT just because it was the first thing I was introduced to, and it became easy, and it's just what I'm used to now. But I'm always exploring new options, and it's exciting. It's really exciting. But I think start with what your community is using. I think it's a good introduction right there.
Yeah, it's a really good tip.
Yeah, if I can just come back in on this, the other point, and I made it earlier, is we shouldn't really be selecting AI solutions in a silo. We should be partnering with ops teams and other internal functions when we're doing this, so that we're following organizational policy when it comes to privacy, data. Whatever we're using integrates into our existing ecosystem, those types of questions as well. So I do think it's important that we partner with, in particular, operations teams when it comes to evaluating and selecting AI platforms.
Awesome. Okay, so content. It seems like whenever we talk about AI, we talk about content and content creation. So when customizing content and making sure that it fits your brand's voice, isn't there an opportunity to quote unquote train AI to learn your voice and your brand, and then the content it would spit out would be more aligned?
I can take that.
Okay.
It's possible to train an AI to learn your voice, your patterns but not necessarily over time. You can do it at a point in time. The thing is, the process of the training and doing it correctly is not democratizable, so to speak. So that requires domain expertise, actually. So as of now, we have not seen any very easy way of training or fine-tuning these models to your voice.
That's interesting. I always think about that training from a marketer's point of view. Like, can I train it for my 4 personas, and then when it writes emails, it writes it for each of those 4 personas. So I think this is a really interesting question and something we'll probably continue to talk about. Love it. Okay. Oh, and I think this might be our last question, but this is all about data collection. We talked a lot about data today. So what can we do if our data collection process is manual? We're collecting data in a spreadsheet. Can we still use those AI tools to help analyze?
Again, I can try answering this. The short answer is yes, but there are nuances. So if it's an Excel spreadsheet that you're using, and you can easily transform that to something called a CSV file, then that can be fed in, right? But but the AI, generative AI, has to know the schema of that file, what column means what, right? Once it learns that, it can answer questions based on that Excel file, for example. And some of the existing AI models are starting to do that. I presume this process will become easier as we go along, and we will have more easy user interface, user-friendly interfaces to enable you to do that. We are not quite there yet.
Awesome. So all is not lost if we're still in the manual processes.
Obviously.
We still have it in spreadsheets and things like that. That's awesome. Well, it was so great talking to all of you. I know there's so many more questions. We could probably do this for a whole nother hour. There is an opportunity where, you could ask questions and we can still chat some answers even after this is closed. So I'll just keep that in mind. And of course, this will be recorded. So if you want to watch it again or pass it along to any of your colleagues or friends, you'll have the opportunity to do that. And this is going to conclude our session for today. I just thank you all for taking time out of your busy days to join us. We hope you all enjoyed the session, and we look forward to seeing you on future Cvent webinars. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.